myself and Ricardo. So my name is Moldy. I'm the solution architect at BidLight. Technically, I help build our technical solution, and I have a background in construction, architecture, and software. Ricardo here is the CEO of AEC IS Arquitectura, and he's an architect, obviously, and this is his single home project, which he designed and used BidLight to estimate. And obviously now he's in the construction phase, and he's happy that the cost was very effective. That's how we came up with this webinar idea. What can I add, Ricardo? Am I missing something? What kind of projects?
No, thank you very much. Thank you all for taking the time to joining us. I really appreciate your taking time to being here and see what we have for you. As Moldy says, I'm the CEO and architect of my company, AEC Arquitectura. We are focused on residential architecture, and today we're going to present you a single-family home I developed a couple of months ago, and in which I was, struggling with the cost estimating process, and then I bumped into Moldy and his solution, and we started creating this long-term relationship, and now we're here presenting you the process and the optimized cost estimation workflow for you to take a look at and see how that can help you streamline your process.
Perfect. So how about we go ahead and start, Ricardo?
Sure thing.
Alrighty. So what do we have here? So this is our agenda for today. We're gonna talk about BIM mistakes that are commonly they happen when you model, when you use BIM or when you model 3D components for BIM, and the second thing we look at is the BIM workflow and the automation, and thirdly, obviously, we're gonna take a look at how Ricardo used BidLight to accelerate and save time and have an accurate estimation for his single home villa. All right. So BIM mistakes and pitfall. Ricardo.
Sure. So the BIM mistakes. So mainly here we're going to talk about one of the biggest mistake I have seen in my experience is that now with this building information modeling catching up, customers are asking for an LOD 400 sometimes without knowing what the scope of that level of detail is.
Sure.
And for them, it's kind of easy to say and say, okay, we need that because we want to quantify everything. But again, it's not their fault. It's actually our fault because we don't know, we haven't explained them exactly what the level of detail is and how to agree on a scope of work that works for everyone. Right?
Yeah,
so that's,
totally agree.
and actually accompanying this BIM mistake number one, once you start modeling or creating the project for the customer without knowing the exact level of detail or the scope of work, you get into no metadata, you end up working on no federated models, and therefore you get no constructible models at all. So one way of getting this right is to first thing, define the scope of work. So agree on the same page, so you include the stakeholders, all the trades and the people involved in the project, and define who does what. That way, that can work as the main contract. So you, instead of pointing fingers, and see who is responsible for what and what are the commitments they did. And accompanying that is, of course, what is the well-known BIM execution plan, which is kind of the amendment or an appendix of the scope of work and serves you as a guide for your development team to know exactly to which level of detail they are going to develop every single model or element in the BIM model or the project overall.
Right. So yeah, maybe Ricardo, I would like to add to that even sometimes people, I honestly did this in the past. So I did both mistakes. The one that
I did too, yeah.
Yeah, so the one that you just mentioned, hoping to model everything to a very high, I was thinking LOD 500, right? Not only 400.
Right.
Manufacturer information, metadata, like everything on every component. And obviously that's not realistic. But the second mistake that I would add here is the BIM execution plan what I did this too. I downloaded the BIM execution plan from the internet, and it's very generic. It doesn't tackle all the trades or all the components that we're using for that specific project. And I just skimmed through it and I started using that. And obviously that's not the best way. And since then I stopped, obviously, because that's not practical. So I would emphasize on your point here. Absolutely take great care of your BIM execution plan. That's your guide, how you're gonna model and what level of information you're gonna include in each of your BIM components. So that obviously later on would facilitate a lot of things, including quantification, estimation, so on and so forth, right?
Right on. And just to wrap this up, I just want to mention that when you want to tackle the BIM models to an LOD of 400 overall, I mean, modeling everything to the highest level of detail possible, you end up creating unmanageable files. And I got, I did this mistake in the past and it was like crazy. You cannot manage any model with an LOD 400 because it becomes something really heavy in file size, unmanageable because you're adding more information than needed. So yeah, again, it's kind of a beginner's mistake, but hopefully with this information, people will know how to avoid them. Absolutely. And start off on the right foot.
Absolutely. So off to mistake number 2. So this usually, this has been the way of how we did the things in the past, and that's regarding the cost of your project, right? When we start designing as an architect, or usually this happens on the architect side, right? In the SD phase, they will only focus on the concept and on the design, right? And not even the constructability of the project. At least that's what I did in the past, right? And I've known a couple of friends who did this. So the problem here, when you don't take care, or at least you don't keep in mind the cost of your project early on, things will pile up, right? And especially if you're working with, if you have obviously clients that are very set on a budget, which they have the right to be, and then you'll be like, oh, so this kitchen actually it added, I don't know, like $300,000, or this element actually it costs this much. I didn't know that. If you considered those elements beforehand, right, that issue will never happen. So I would say the solution to this problem, obviously, there is twofold. Your BIM models, they should come, as much as you could from a manufacturer, right? So if you go to any manufacturer online, whether it's steel, whether it's electrical, whatever, the manufacturer, you will find different Revit family, at least, right? Revit as a starting point, families, but also other formats. And you can download those with the metadata that you need for your estimation and your cost and so many other things. And use that, right? So know beforehand what kind of light fixture you're gonna use. Know what kind of drain you're gonna use. Know, right? So look into these items beforehand, before you start the design. Also, the other thing which relates tightly to this point is knowing the local market, right? So these prices, they have to work for the local client, not where you're at, where the client is, obviously. And once you get these two elements right, from the start, from the SD phase up till the DD and CD phase, you will have your cost always under control. Ricardo, do you want to add anything to this
Sure.
point?
Yeah, adding up to this point is that usually, even with the BIM methodology, it is common to see how architects or AEC professionals wait until the construction documentation to start with the cost estimation process. And hey, you already have the technology, which is BIM. So that allows you to start with the cost estimating process since the initial phases of the project. So you don't have to wait until the CD in order to know how much the project would cost, So that's how you face this kind of ironic transition, because probably people are accustomed to doing this from the old 2D CAD environment, and then they just pass that along to the BIM methodology. But hey, you need to, stop and see what's working actually, and just recalculate the whole thing in order for getting this right.
Absolutely. So what happened here? This is actually...
Oh, you go back. You went back one. Yeah.
Good. All right. So what would be the third mistake, Ricardo?
Oh, so another pretty common mistake. It's just we've got the BIM model ready. We have all the information from the construction documentation phase. And now, instead of syncing all the data, we prefer to separate all the BIM documents and share them across the whole team, but in an isolation way. What this means is that you don't have the sync data, you don't know who did what. That means no version control, and of course you're not deploying those documents in the cloud. You're just sharing those with email or the messages, etc., but you're not actually gathering them all in a single source of truth, which is, you know, another mistake, because you already have the information from a 3D model that has data in it. So if you don't share that the right way, you end up with little islands all over the place, and with no manageable way to get cost estimating right.
I agree. So always keeping one source of truth, and this is obviously, again, these might seem like, I mean, they're beginner mistakes, obviously, because they're common, right? If they weren't common, they won't be, if they weren't beginner's mistake, they won't be common. So definitely I agree with you. Whenever you want to put one source of truth, like you should think in that way, keeping one source of truth, working on federated models, and maybe I would add the like coordinating those different files and having shared coordinate system. This is very important, especially when you're working in different trades. So if you have a shared coordinate system, that obviously could like something that could facilitate the integration of all these federated models later on, right? Ricardo,
there you go.
Point? Good. All right. So the general, I mean, obviously these are like very common things, but the more serious points here that we want to address, and I've seen this, I'm not sure, Ricardo, like in your experience how this looks like, but there is like more fundamental issues. This usually happens by like companies. Usually it starts if you're like mid-size and going up. So when you have, and one of these, or maybe some of these common pitfalls, I would say fundamental pitfalls, are you have the wrong team, right? So you don't have a team that works well together. You don't have a team with a very specific, let's say like manager or a leader who would set up the plan for the rest of the team to follow. And that is, I've seen that, and that's a big problem. Or you'll have like this team, but it's segregated, right? This guy only cares about MEP, this guy only cares about structure, right? And then there is no communication happening. So getting the right team is absolutely essential. And I worked in both environments. I worked in my past experience. I worked with a good team, and I worked with a bad team, right? And eventually that will affect that person's performance and like the way he sees the work environment. So that's very important. I would say the wrong process, and this goes back to BIM execution plan, but also even it goes a bit above that. If the group or the team themselves or the company themselves, they don't have a process even before the execution plan, right? How they communicate issues, how they store data, where they get the data, what solutions they use, how they use these solution training documents, so on and so forth. That obviously could be a I've seen that, and that's like a common issue that happens within BIM teams. I mean, no alignment that would go back to the team. If your team, everyone is like worrying about his own thing, that's a big problem. And the third and the fourth one and the last one is lack of experience. Now, I don't mean lack of BIM experience, because most of BIM modelers or BIM engineers or BIM managers, they know BIM. That's a fact. What they lack is construction experience. Now, that could be that's honestly, it depends. If you're like on a lead of a team, or if you're I would say like a VDC or a BIM engineer, you should know how things are on site, like how to build things. That's what will give you the understanding. Or if you're an architect, that would give you the understanding how to model things, or where to find those models, and what kind of data to incorporate, right, for later on for manufacturing or for execution, or right for later stages. Ricardo, do you want to add anything, or this sounds right?
Definitely. No, let me just add up something important in my experience, because actually BIM gets harder when you don't know exactly. When you know how things work in construction, BIM gets harder. And let me tell you why.
Yeah.
The easiest part is to get and start off 3D modeling. That's easy process. You can just open a BIM authoring platform, start modeling, and that's it. The thing is, that you won't be able to get the constructible model because you don't know how construction works.
Yeah.
But the more you know about construction, the harder it gets to model or to create those BIM development. And I have faced this a lot of times with companies I have worked with, and in my own company. The more complex the construction system is, the harder the challenge is to model that, in the BIM authoring platform and create the construction documentation for the general contractor or who are gonna execute the building. So this is why experience in construction is paramount. I think it is a backbone of BIM methodology. If you are lacking that experience, well, we encourage you to get out of the office and just, start visiting the site to get to witness what's happening there and how things are built. What are the logistics of that process? So you get to know how long it takes to move this portion of material to the other point and what happens between the process. It's kind of...
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I would say also, Ricardo, like if you're working in a big company or medium-sized company, go out, especially like integrated design build companies or like a GC, because these people, they have all sort of disciplines, right? So if you're a VDC, go out to site, talk to the superintendent, talk to the PM, talk to the estimators, talk to pre-con, understand how these things work, because that will give you like a bird eye view of what's going on, and that will obviously facilitate your job as a BIM manager or BIM engineer.
That's totally right. And one thing here important is that we need to be humble enough to admit that we, even though we are the architects, the lead designer, or whoever we are, we must accept that we don't know everything. We must be there in the site and ask the guys that actually do the execution of the construction.
For sure. So what about the BIM workflow and automation, Ricardo?
Sure. Yeah. Let's take a quick overview on the BIM workflow. So I'm gonna tell you how I faced this challenge of creating an accurate cost estimation for my single family home. And as I'm presenting here, the challenge was, okay, I need an accurate and manageable cost estimation. So how do I get that? So the process was to first get the local database with local market pricing. It was more about the market research and see get the cost updated. And then it started the 3D modeling process with Revit. We are actually an Autodesk-based firm, so this is why we're using Revit. And including in the process, it's what Moldy said before. We have to use manufacturer-specific content to the fullest extent. Sometimes you can't, because there are some things that you cannot specify from a manufacturer, but the rest, if that can be, it's about using them. Yeah. So what was the outcome? After that process of iterating from go back and forth, we ended up using or having a reusable cost database. And I'm gonna stop here a bit. The cost database probably is the most overlooked item in the cost estimation thing when you're just getting started with cost estimation. But again, it is the core. If you have a solid and reliable cost database, the process of estimating with BidLight is gonna be a blast. I mean, it just around 10, 20, 30 minutes at max, because you have previously worked so hard on getting the cost database right. So what you get with that is accurate cost. So you don't have to worry about guessing how much that is going to be, but you're going to rely on your cost database to get the cost right. Yeah. And of course, that leads to the ultimate process, which I think it is the most difficult, to get things automated. And if you can go to the next slide, I'm going to just dive deep into that process. Okay, so this is kind of an overview of how we use BIM in our firm, with Revit as a base for modeling, and the importance of having the manufacturer-specific content. You see how we use and specify the products, and the good thing about this is that manufacturers are doing the hard work for us. You don't have to come up with all of the stuff and the information. Manufacturers do, because they are interested in you using their products and ultimately buying from them. So that's why they input a lot of effort in getting BIM ready content for architects and construction professionals to use. So that is how we integrate all the disciplines in a design, whether it is small or large. We have been using BIM for all projects because we know the benefits of that, and we know that we spend time wisely when we use it. And of course, there is a BIM execution plan, which encompasses our scope of work, and we can agree with the customer to what extent we're going to develop what, so they don't get, surprises at the end and we end up pointing fingers because we didn't know who did what. So this is why it is important to get this right since from the beginning. And of course you can, adjust on the go, but it is better if you have this beforehand.
I agree. All right. What about automation?
Yeah, so that's okay. Those three processes or those three steps are the core of the automation on this BIM methodology. So first thing, cost database. I think we have been insisting on the cost database, but believe me, this is the backbone for the good and optimized cost estimating process. Getting local market prices, getting a resource for you to update accordingly whenever this inflates because of, inflation, the economy changes. Yeah. You need to be able to update that dynamically, so all of your exactly, so all of your system is up to date.
Yeah. Or the system should.
That's right. You and the system, because you actually input that info, and the system recognizes it and updates the whole estimation that you already have in place. So the platform, in this case BidLight, using cloud deployments and desktop. So you have those two synced in order for you to see what's working on your desktop behind the scenes, and when you export that to the cloud, your customers and stakeholders can see what's going on with that building. Yeah. And ultimately, and most important, the knowledge. It's about to know the construction supply chain. If you don't know logistics and supply chain in construction, you're going to get lost because you're going to miss a lot of tiny processes within the execution that are important and that cost money and time.
I totally agree. So how BidLight helps estimate projects in 10 minutes, Ricardo? So let me start by putting the points here, and then maybe we'll talk about how we did this with your project with the villa. So
absolutely.
So the main points of BidLight, or the main cores of BidLight, are simplicity of use. That we're trying at most to keep our number of clicks, literally number of clicks to achieve any task, no more than 3 to 4 clicks. And the accessibility. You have the option as a user, if you're using BidLight, to access all your documents, all your 3D models on web, mobile, desktop, everywhere you want, right? And obviously the cost database. So a brief, I know Ricardo has been saying cost database, but a brief point here regarding the cost database. Our cost database is global. Right, so if you're building, no matter what location you're building at, you can have a database at that point. Right, in our system, you pull down that database from it will come down automatically once you create filter, which we will see how that works. And what you need to do, which is the case for every project, you have to skim through it, right? Because the reason why the database has the labor, has the equipment, has the material, it has all these things, and there is an average price that is used in that local area. So what you will get what the price would look like for on average, right? So you won't get the cheapest, you won't get the highest, but you will get the average. What you need to do here, you need to skim through it and make sure that this is what you get. Maybe you have a better manufacturer, maybe you have a great procurement deals, so you can get it for cheaper. So you need to take a look. You can't just be okay, the database is fine, it updates. Yes, it updates automatically, but it updates the average. It doesn't update your personal database. That's first thing. The second thing, also even the labor and the equipment. Yes, there is a mapping system. From material, we can get how the labor, and we can get the time it would take them and the cost, but we don't know your team as you do, especially if you're a subcontractor. If you're a subcontractor, you know how many crews you have, and this crew would perform slightly better than this crew just lost person, this crew, right? And you need to adjust that in your system, so when you estimate the project, it will reflect those realities. Now, we do value engineering, but those things are unpredictable, and we cannot think about these things, right? You have to take a look. So that part, maybe I need to make sure that everyone understands. And obviously interoperability of BidLight. BidLight supports IFC, and in the future we are looking into other formats that we 3ds and some other formats that we will be supporting. Now, optimized cost estimation. So what you need for this, obviously, is the right information about your project, right? And then the cost database that will keep happening, it will keep saying cost database. And then if you're an architect, or usually this happens with architects, right, when they're designing, don't think that the design is exempt from the cost. It's not. So as soon as you start with the SD phase, start looking at the cost. With BidLight, it's one click of a button. You have 3D model, click BidLight, export, and then go look at your cost, right? See how that looks like. Investigate. We will go through that in a bit. Now here's an example. This is Ricardo's villa. By the way, if you get an account today, if you subscribe today, you have 21 days free. But if you get an account today, you will get Ricardo's villa as a template, right? With all the pricing and all this process that he did here, you will have all of that available for you. So as you can see here, the process for estimating, obviously it has two folds. It has the automated side, which will be automatically classified. As you can see on top here, it says 2,279 items. These are classified items already. And there is 693 unclassified items. Now these, because they might be very specific, or maybe that manufacturer, we don't have his information, right? There is many situations where you have to add, for instance, like this valve that Ricardo is adding here. This is something that we don't have, this specific valve, right? We have valves, but not this one. So he added a new catalog item, and this valve from now on will start tracking the cost of that item, right? So that object, even 10 years in the future, you will know whether that object's price will go up or down, right? If that object exists out there in the environment. Now, as you can see here, like the main concept, there is left side and middle side and right side. This is on the desktop side, right? So the left side is where your things are classified, where your elements are classified, their assembly items are classified with their cost using the uniformat. The middle section, what you see here, is the unclassified, and like I would call it the work area, where you change unit cost, where you change, drag, like classify and unclassify things simply by dragging and dropping. And the left side, the right side, is the 3D. Now, why we incorporated 3D in an estimation software? Because simply sometimes you will have an item that doesn't make much sense, right? Like obviously this is in Spanish here, but sometimes you have some other items that they don't make any sense. This would make sense to Ricardo, but not to me. How can I help Ricardo estimate this? Let's say like I'm working for Ricardo and I want to estimate this. I will click on this item, go to the 3D and then hit F. And that will take me, frame my view to that element. And obviously that will give me understand, oh, it's a pipe, oh, it's a valve, oh, it's a whatever column, or right, hollow column. So that's the concept here. Okay, let me go to the next slide. Is this the next slide? Let me see. So yeah, so obviously the steps to estimate, as I mentioned, you export your project from either Revit or you upload an IFC file. And then step 2, you have to take a look at the database. Yes, it's automated. Yes, it's close to perfect, but you're the only one who knows whether everything makes sense or not. 99% of things will make sense there, but you need to take a look. Export, and then you export, right? Load, import files, whether 3D, Revit or IFC, adjust your database as needed, and then export. And if you build like too many projects, or you estimate too many projects in the short time span, you don't need to look at the database. You do it once, and then it's an automatic process. Just click button. You know that last week you estimated very similar type of project, so you don't need to put a lot of effort into that. All right.
Yeah, Molden, let me share my experience in here, because I think it is important that people know how we went through this process. So in the beginning, when I met BidLight, I thought that it was going to be like, you know, a simple drag and drop, and in 20 minutes I was going to be all set. The reality is, and let me stress on this, we need to work in the database, the cost database. Believe me, I was actually skipping that part, and Moldy knows better than I do that I was just kind of trying to do this estimation by just dragging the objects and just inputting the cost, but I wasn't touching the database as I should have done. So this is why I got back to the database thing and spent days, if not weeks, trying to make sense how that worked. But finally, when I understood how the database was the backbone of the whole estimation process, I knew that it was the first step, rather than just dragging and dropping the whole thing, because that is the easiest part. and it's pretty actually simple to understand. It's straightforward. But the cost database, guys, believe me, that is the thing that you need to input the most time in.
I totally agree. As you can see here, like from the middle section, whenever we click on an object on that list, you will see it in red. That means it's not priced. You don't know the price of this item, or the software doesn't know the price. And on the left side, you will have the priced items. So once you figure out what object is that, you can drag it and drop it in the correct section. As you can see here, this is drain, and as you can see, I searched for rain, not even drain, and I'm looking. Sorry, and Ricardo's looking for. I mean, I did this process even before Ricardo. And Ricardo did this process. We did multiple times. But as you can see here, he's looking for whatever like item. That fits that object, the 3D object, and then he will drag it and drop it there, and that should classify the item, right? Let's see if we can.
And I couldn't have done this alone. You know, I got Moldy's help all the time because this process was new to me, and actually, yeah, I got help on every single stage on this estimation process.
For sure. So yeah, we went through these items, but again, the same process. You click on your element, 3D element on the 3D side. You figure out whether they're blue or red. If they're blue, you're good. You just make sure that the unit cost makes sense. If they're not, you drag and drop. But also here, as you can see, there is the catalog, the database side, and the database has multiple sections to it. So the first section would be like the mapping. And this is where you map your labor to your catalog, or your equipment to your catalog. And then once you're done with the mapping, you can go to those specific items and either add to them or remove or edit. And during that phase, what you will see from BidLight is the average cost of that item. And then what you see, like up there is like an average cost, and down there is a different cost, right? And once you update that, we will keep always track. Here up here it says BidLight, here it says database. So this is your personal space, and this is where BidLight would tell you, okay, this would cost this much, right? And it's very intuitive. So in terms of labor, we estimate the labor based on the crew. Now you can create a crew of 1 person or a crew of 20 people, it doesn't matter, right? But we have like specific trades in there, and the common formation of these crews in those trades, that's what we have in there. General labor, field engineering, elevator subcontractor, so on and so forth, electrical, plumbing, carpenter, concrete, everything is in there, right? But again, you have to take a look. If you don't take a look, we don't know that one of your guys left, well, like the crew, right? So you have to update that information. Ricardo, yeah, is there anything else you want to add here, or do you think this is...
Yeah, I think that this is also an important part of the process. So you, better than no one, knows your crews. Yep. So if you happen to be the GC, you know that you've got a different crews with different people, the outer subcontractor, and you need to input the yields because that's what your people do. So that's how you get more accurate when it comes to estimation.
Yeah. Let me double check here. We're good. Okay. I like once in a while I would take a look at the streaming to see whether we're good or not. So okay, now what's the roadmap for BidLight? So right now we do have automated estimation. We support IFC and we support Revit. What we plan for next year, which is like in a month, Q1, is the lean construction process. What you will see, maybe we will take a look online just to show you something like live. Actually, let me show you something live right now because I have access. I'm gonna go, all right. So I have access here. I'm gonna go back and, no, not that, this. Okay, if I go back, this is my list of my projects. So everyone who creates an account will get this simple project house and will get the Starling home, and this is done by Ricardo. So thank you, Ricardo, for that. So if we
my pleasure.
If we go to the history of any of the projects, you see that there is multiple estimations that are done, and every estimate, it will have the detailed cost here, the division cost, all the divisions, and it will have the files, the Excel files for the sheet, like the Excel sheet for the estimation, the quantity, and the AWP, Advanced Work Package. And you will have a view model here. If you click on that view model, it will open this view. Now, the great thing here that you can click on any item on this 3D view and look what labor it requires, what material, what equipment, and what are what's the time that would take them to finish that item and the cost. So if I click here, you see like there is some labor, there is like material, and this would take this long to build and it would cost me this much, right? If you go down, you can see like the equipment that will be used for how long, for 11 hours in total. Again, because these kind of buildings, they don't really require like heavy equipment, but you can put also even like small equipments like vibrators and so on and so forth, right? You can include everything. And there is, these templates have all these equipments and they're ready to use, right? So you just spawn, create a filter and click estimate and select one of the filters that are available there if you want. And once you create estimate, all this information will be pulled to you and adjusted based on your local your location, right? So yeah, this is like one of the things that I wanted to show here. So all these items you can start clicking and navigating through, and that will give you obviously a better understanding of the cost, and these materials and equipments will update accordingly, right? So back to our presentation. So as I said, Q1 next year will be lean construction. Q2 we're planning to release our safety. So we do have a rough prototype, but it's not public yet for the safety, and that's something that's gonna come up in Q2. We're gonna keep working all throughout all the quarters. We're gonna keep working on our AI engine, and we're gonna optimize that and make sure that all those costs that come to you are very detailed and they're very accurate. And obviously clash detection, that's something that we're planning to add. Ricardo, yeah, obviously you can get BidLight for free right now. If you go to BidLight.com, you have 21 days for free, and we do customer support. We help you set up your database. You don't need to, but if you wanna, if you have like some prices that you're very proud of and you wanna incorporate those in your database, just reach out to us, whether through phone or email, and we'll help you set that up. You can use the Revit or IFC for the moment, and hopefully throughout the next year we'll release more formats so you can estimate anything and everything literally. Again, our estimation platform is completely other platforms agnostic, right? Revit is one way, but you can use also IFC, you can use 3ds Max, you can use SketchUp, you can use whatever you want. We will support those in the future. All right, any questions? Let me look at the chat. Actually, I did not. Oh, here I'm pulling. Guys, if you have any questions, you can put that in the comments on the LinkedIn live event. Let's see, I'm refreshing here.
Sure, and let me just, while guys are getting ready, just to say that I have been testing multiple platforms in the past, and honestly, this is kind of the one that I was looking for, because I was telling myself, okay, I need a platform that can be integrated, you know, easily, that has cloud deployment as well, that has direct integration with Revit, because for me that is kind of the main thing, because I'm based on Revit, so I'm looking for solutions that are based on that platform. Yeah. So, and when I started with BidLight, and you know, this drag and drop process, this kind of intuitive interface where you just duplicate something if you don't have it, and create new items if you don't have them there. So it was like, okay, this is what I want. Of course, it's still in development, but it's super powerful now. I mean, it has the information you need, but remember, the more detailed work you do, or the more constructible model you create, it will become easier to estimate in BidLight, because BidLight will have the information from your model, either Revit or IFC. Yeah. But you have to craft the models right in a constructible way, so you get things easier in BidLight.
Absolutely, yeah. And I will emphasize on your point the advantage of those formats, right? You don't have to do any manual work. We automatically match your material to your equipment and to your labor and to your cost. So you don't have to do any of that work, right? And you don't have, it's for example, like OST comes on mind on screen takeoff, right? All the drawing, like the drawing of the shapes and taking off those measurements, that's done automatically for you, right? So the quantifying process done in an instant, and the database is already existing in our system. You might want to take a look to adjust for very specific needs. Other than that, it's one button click, and the time for the actual AI to estimate the cost for you is literally 2 minutes, right? The actual estimation. Maybe the process would take a bit longer if your model is lacking elements, and you would go inside BidLight and clone existing elements and edit or create new elements from scratch. But the whole process shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes if you have your database set up. As Ricardo mentioned, probably the one thing that would take the most of the time is figuring out what works for you in terms of database. Yeah, cool.
That's right.
I think we are having, I'm not sure if we're having any comments, Ricardo. It's not pulling them here. We might have to end this event. Let me take another look.
Sure, let's take a, sometimes it takes some time to...
Yeah. Let me see. Guys, if you have comments, just put them in the LinkedIn chat, right? Comment as BidLight, or in the LinkedIn comment section, or on YouTube, right? So there is 2 places we're live at right now, and any one of these locations would work.
Sure, and even if you don't have any questions right now, you can always get in touch with us at a later stage, so you let us know what you are concerned about or what observations you've got from this presentation.
Absolutely. Let me look here. Maybe there is some
you've got from this presentation.
Absolutely. Okay. Cool. Ricardo, do you wanna wait maybe for a few more minutes? I think we're probably like 15 minutes short than 1 hour, so we're pretty good. It did not take us too long to lay out these information.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think do you want to wait like a couple more minutes and see if people?
Let's wait for 5 minutes just to see if people can come up with something. I think this is sometimes it is too much information to digest, and I understand. So this is why people need some time to think of.
Yeah. Again, this is not this is not a demo. This is not a it's not a tutorial, right? So it's just letting people know what are the capabilities. And honestly, we did not touch on all of them, right? The accessibility, how you can share through emails and keep access control. Like there is different things that you can do with BidLight. How you can add like teammate work, collaborative items, transparency on the cost, and updating costs after you share the estimate if you need to, right? If you make a mistake or if you want to add something, right? So all these processes, they exist today in BidLight. But again, they're not the core, so we did not focus on those. We focused on the estimation section because a lot of the complaints we received in the past, hey, my BIM model doesn't have everything. Well, if it doesn't have everything, you have all the tools you need inside the BidLight desktop. You can create, you can clone existing items, you can create from scratch, you can copy, you can do all these things. The same for your 3D model as for your database, right?
Yeah, and one thing though is that I want to emphasize on the importance of cost estimation as an architect, because that actually helps you avoid construction overruns. So you don't have you don't go over budget, and you always keep things on track, you know? So this is kind of a wake-up call to all the architects like myself to include a cost estimating process into their workflow, because believe me, when you get numbers right, all the process is smooth, frictionless, and of course you're taking care of your customer's budget.
I totally agree. maybe the one thing that I would add here, we have customers all over the globe, and most of our customers are in Canada and the US. But what I noticed personally, people who reached out for us to help them with their database. So people would reach out for their database, and if you think it's maybe challenging for you to set up your database, or you think it's intimidating, or maybe there is a lot of data there and you don't know what to remove, what to keep, or how to congregate your data, please reach out to support@bidlight.com. We'll email you within few hours, and we'll set up a couple calls and go through your database, help you do that on BidLight, and that's absolutely free of charge, right? So we support our customers as much as we could, and I think that's essential, right, for us and for them, for both our success.
It is.
Ricardo, I mean, obviously you called me multiple times when you started using BidLight, and
I did.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely better than just being like, oh, I don't get it, or maybe this is too much information for me, right? You will ask and see what other people do, and obviously will help you. We're available for your help 24/7.
Exactly. Just don't discard BidLight on the first try because you don't understand something. It's just, again, you can always reach out to Moldy and its team to support you. So just take a look, try it out, and if you don't understand something, just reach out and those guys will help you with the process.
Cool. All right, I think Ricardo, we should end this here.
Sure.
We've been online for like more than 1 hour, but essentially for 45 minutes doing this webinar, and I think this is a great success for our first webinar. Hopefully, we'll come up with more webinars. Our goal is like once a month from now on, and hopefully that's easier. That's easy. And I know it's easier said than done, but I hope we can find like the people will bring up like people from the industry. Right now we're like trying to collaborate with the people who came up with the IFC web support system or library, and we'll see if we can bring them in next month or some other subject if things don't pan out. But again, thank you everyone, and I really appreciate your time. If you have any questions, again, reach out to BidLight to support@bidlight.com, and please go online. It's free of charge, 21 days for free. You can cancel anytime you want. Go to bidlight.com and see the magic and the automatic estimation that BidLight brings in. Ricardo, do you want to say any last words?
No, thank you guys. Thanks for your time, and thank you, Moldy, for having me.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Talk soon. Bye-bye.